Hi, this is Denise Mathew. I hope you're doing well. I just wanted to pop in quick and talk about the Mercury Retrograde that's coming up in a couple days. I believe it's on June 18th, as well as the solar eclipse, which will be happening on June 21st. Now, this is a powerful solar eclipse, and it will be lasting for probably about 3 to 6 months afterwards, the energy. So I just wanted to talk about the energy of this particular solar eclipse. The Mercury Retrograde will be from June 18th to July 12th, and the gates that are going to be transited are the gate 39 and also 52. And the solar eclipse is going to happen on June 21st. As I said, it's going to be 0 degrees Cancer, and it's going to be in the gate 15. And the gate 15 is extremes in life and diversity. And so what I'll do is I'll talk about that in just a second. But based on what Bernadette Brady says, now she's an astrologer who's done a lot of work on the Saros cycles and also eclipses. She said that this is for North, the eclipse. And based on what she said, it's about restriction, inhibitions, and all the things that are written here. And it can be considered something that could be a little bit on the difficult side. It is going to be in the gate 15. So now the gate 15 is all about extremes in life, but there are some positive qualities to it as well. So if we look at the transits, we can see that on the day of the solar eclipse, Mercury will already have been retrograde. So we'll talk about those gates that are being transited after I go through the solar eclipse. So the solar eclipse is in the gate 15. The gate 15 is a humanitarian energy. The gate 15 is all about the love of humanity. There can be a lot of caring and a lot of the greater good for like Greenpeace activists, this kind of thing. So there could be a lot of this energy where people are standing up for humanity. And really right now with the world, the way things are shifting, it can really talk about maybe more people marching, more people protesting, and those kind of things. Now, there is this potential for extremism, and hopefully that won't be the case, but it is there. The other perspective is just standing up for the greater good, or to really stand up for humanity and to hope that the change will come. The thing about this energy is it is unpredictable, and it is something that you're not going to know how it all plays out until it actually shows up. But there is potential for, again, the extremism, but there's also potential for it to bring people together in this whole concept of humanity. And I looked at the news the other day, and I saw an image, and it was an image of a protester for Black Lives Matter, and it was in the UK. And apparently they were protesting, and what happened was there was another group of, I guess they would be sort of people who wanted to go against the people who were protesting for Black Lives Matter. And so what happened was there was a skirmish, and one of the, I guess they would be called counter protesters, were hurt. And then this man, a really big, muscular guy, he picked up this guy who had been beaten up, and he protected him from being harmed. This man was from Black Lives Matter, and he had this other man over his shoulder in what they called a fireman's pose. And I said, if there's anything that really expresses the whole idea of humanity, it was that moment in time. It was like you forget all the agendas, you forget the politics, you forget the causes that you're standing for, and you look at that human in front of you, and you say, this is a human being, and I respect them as a human being. And I think if we see it from that perspective, if we can see that, if we look at what's happening now, we see a lot of people who are protesting. We see people who are fighting in the streets, but we also see a lot of peaceful protests. So what the whole story of this is that when we look at the whole concept of, why are we fighting for whatever we're fighting, or why are we protesting, or why do we want change? Well, we look at the world that we live in, and we want to make it better. And this is what the Gate 15 really is about. It is about, how can we make this world better? Now, there can be an environmental aspect of this as well, but when it comes down to the actual meaning of it, it is about humanity. And we are all human, and we're all here together in the same place. I mean, the planet is big enough for everyone. And just that expression. So this is what the solar eclipse is about, this humanity. So if we can try and bring that high side of what it means to what we're doing, that kind of energy can pass on to other people, and other people will feel it. And it's something that we could think about. And just remembering that, everybody can have different opinions and be okay. And I always call it parallel opinions, as in parallel beliefs. So in other words, I believe in one thing, and you know, a lot of politics and stuff like that. People will not even be able to sit at the same dinner table because they have different political views. And when you look at that and you think, well, you know, is that really that important? You know, what's more important than having your family with you or somebody you love with you, and just put that all aside, because the end of the day, it is people's opinions. Like, my opinion is no better than anybody else's opinion, because ultimately it's something that hasn't been proven to be true. And it's just something I believe. And my thing about opinions is that they're like cotton candy. There's no substance to them, and they only feel sweet to the person who's giving it. Now, if you have something where somebody's asking your opinion, of course, it's going to be different. But ultimately, this eclipse isn't about opinions. But having said that, I mean, a lot of opinions are coming into the forefront, and a lot of people are getting into other people's business because they think that everything should be a certain way because that's their opinion. So ultimately, the humanity of allowing people to do and say what they need to say, and if they, you know, in a peaceful manner, and let's all sort of get along if we can. And that's the whole concept of what this eclipse is all about. How it transpires, I don't know, but that's the hope and dream, that it will actually come like that. And one more thing to mention about the solar eclipse is that it is actually happening on what would be considered a cardinal point, or it is in relationship to the Earth's point. So that's why we're talking about this being a fairly powerful eclipse. And when we're talking about the eclipse happening, it's happening in the gate 15 as well. And the gates that are going to be transited by the Mercury Retrograde are the 39 and 52. They all come in the second phase of the 4 quarters of human design. So the first quarter would be considered when you germinate, or when the seed begins to sprout. Now the second quarter is all about that seed has already sprouted, it's in the ground, and now it's about just letting it do its thing. Allowing to get true leaves, and allowing the time to do what it's meant to do. And that, I mean, that can be a tough time, because people want everything to grow really fast. And so that's a great lead in to say that this is the kind of energy that we're actually working with. We're working with energy where there's a level of waiting. So when you talk about Mercury retrograde, you're talking about sort of stepping back, it's all about looking at things, revisiting old ideas, revisiting old projects. So maybe going back to something that you've done before, looking at it again. So it's about, the key word is always going to be with Mercury retrograde. You can check with any astrologer as to any sort of rules that they might have for how to deal with a Mercury retrograde. But from a human design perspective, we're talking about the gates 39 and the gate 52. Now the gate 39 is the gate of provocation, and it is really about the idea that we're provoking people into the concept that there is enough for everybody, and that and that, you know, if you believe in something bigger than yourself, the universe, or whatever you want to call it, that you will be provided for. And this is, you know, something that will poke people and say, you know, stop always worrying about everything not coming to you, or not, you know, not happening, and the idea that just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not coming. So that's what it's all about. On the low side, of course, we can talk about provocation as in just to poke people, just to bug people, just for the heck of it. And this could be people who could get provoked into, you know, use provocative language because we're talking about Mercury. So anything that's related to Mercury is going to be something that is in the communication. It's something that's being spoken about. There could be provocative language, and people could be saying provocative things. And so what you have to remember is that, you know, we don't have to react to this. We don't have to react to anything that people say, because, you know, again, we can go back to this whole idea that's their opinion, that's their comment, is not something that we have to believe to be true or accept it as true. And that doesn't mean we have to fight against it. That means that, you know, basically just not reacting to the whole idea of being provoked, and seeing that the higher purpose is that we're provoked into the abundance of spirit, or the idea that spirit is all around, and we will always be provided for if we actually believe it. And the other gate that we'll be transiting is going to be the gate 52. Now, as I said, all of these gates are in that stage beyond the germination, where basically you're waiting for things to happen. You're waiting for the plant to grow. You're waiting for things to get sort of to the point where it looks like a pretty viable plant, or something like that. It's not something that can be hurried along. It's something that will take its time. And that's the whole concept of the gate 52. The gate 52 is that, you know, Richard Rudd talks about it in this whole concept of a universal stress that we feel, like a collective stress, which I think is pretty interesting the way he talks about it, in that he says that stress is not an individual thing, and it is an auric thing that we all sort of have. We're all sort of tapped into the same sort of collective stress thing, and feeling stressed out about things. And he also says that the closer our auras are, like especially in like bigger cities or places where you don't have a lot of free space, the more these kind of themes of stress are going to, to live, because it's so tightly packed. And so that really does make sense. So if you're in a city, you're going to feel more stressed out than if you're out in the urban areas and that kind of thing. So I mean, I think if we look at the whole idea of when we were on lockdown, and a lot of people were having a lot of anxiety and stress being in the lockdown mode. And again, this whole concept of being in close proximity, not having that space, not having that connection with nature for some people, and not being able to get away from other people's energy can be stressful. The whole point of the Gate 52 is to understand that, just like the whole idea of this, this plant is starting to grow, and it will take time. And when it first comes out, when a plant first comes out and it first germinates, you have these two little leaves that come out. And then as it gets bigger, you have bigger leaves, and those would be considered their true leaves. And so when this is happening, it's slow, but it's a process that you cannot hurry. You can't make it unfold any faster. And though we want to have life unfold faster, then it doesn't actually work that way. And there are times of waiting. There's a lot of energy about waiting in this whole theme that we're coming into. It does go back to the whole idea of waiting. And I did a whole video on what it feels like to wait for all types. So it's just something to keep in mind, that there is some level of waiting to see what shows up. And again, we go back to the concept of, just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. Just because you don't know what, you can look at the plant, and it might look exactly the same every day, and then suddenly you have all these new leaves coming on, and that's kind of what it's like with this whole Mercury retrograde. This idea that we're waiting for the leaves to show up, we're waiting for more things to happen, and I think that because we have sort of everything slowed down in certain parts, and then it's sort of opening up again, and people are getting out again, and we're waiting for things to happen in our lives, and we're waiting for jobs to continue, we're waiting for going back to work, we're waiting for the money to come in the mail. So instead of being stressed out by that with the Gate 52, let's go to the high side, sit in stillness and wait, and know that you're going to be provided for with the Gate 39, and not really need that provocation and again, the theme of knowing that the money is going to come, and knowing that the abundance is going to come, and trusting in a higher presence that you'll be taken care of, which can be hard to do. I mean, it's probably one of the hardest things to do, to actually trust that you're going to be taken care of, because if we don't see something in front of us, we don't think it exists. And what the retrograde is all about is knowing that just because we don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist, and to have faith and sometimes sit in stillness, and eventually things happen. And that the thing about it is it happens out of the blue, and you just don't know. So just looking at the Mercury retrograde as a period of time where you can know that we're going to be supported, and understand that just because we don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And if we can keep that in mind, it might make things a little bit easier. I'll just quickly go through the rest of the planets, and a lot of these planets are not going to change position, because they're basically they're slower moving planets. So we're talking about just for the period of the Mercury retrograde. The nodes, we have the Gate 15, because the solar eclipse is going to be on the north node. Then that's why it's all going to be in the Gate 15. The Gate 15, as I just talked about, is going to be a theme that's going to stick around for a little while, because the nodes move slower. So it's about this whole concept of understanding the idea of humanity, and trying to show our best to the world. And the south node is the node that we're coming away from, which is the Gate 10, and that's all about this empowering. Or on the high side it's empowering, but on the other side, the shadow side, you would say that it's more of an energy of narcissism. So we're coming away from narcissism. We're coming away from this idea about me. What do I get out of this? What matters to me? And we're going into the energy of humanity. So there is really a strong perspective of moving away from me and going to us, and how could we make the world a better place, whatever that includes. It could be environmental, it could be equality among everybody, all those kind of things. We have the potential to do it, and the nodes are sort of assisting us in that way. Now, if we look at Venus, Venus is in retrograde, and it's been retrograde for a while. Right now, it's in the gate 20, which is all about the gate of now, in this moment, in this present moment. So it's about how can we stay in this present moment, see what we have, and try and change our lives or change the world in a better place. Now, if we change ourselves, that's going to have like a domino effect. So if we have a better perspective, or if we have a more open perspective, or we have a lighter perspective on the world, and we try and make things better, and we just, it's like you see someone coming out of a store, and hopefully with social distancing it's still okay, but you could open up the door for somebody and hold the door open for somebody, or again, we're talking about social distancing, but helping people with their bags, or helping people whatever they need, because there's all kinds of people out there that need help, and if we can just help in some small way, that is going to strengthen our humanity and bring us together in a time of world change, really. The Mars is in the gate 36, and this is about the gate of chaos, but it's also about crisis management. So where are we going to go with this? I mean, Mars is an aggressive energy. Mars is all about militaristic and sort of a warrior type of energy, or it could be a lot of energy to get things done, and it could be a lot of energy pushing towards crisis intervention or crisis resolution, which is really what we want to do. I think we're moving towards crisis resolution. So that's another way that we could work together to make the world a better place. We have Jupiter in the gate 61. The gate 61 is this psychosis, but it is also this idea of searching to know the unknowable. We also have Pluto in it, which has been in there for a while. So Pluto is a transformative energy, but it brings everything down to the foundation so it can be rebuilt. So we could talk about the psychosis of, okay, we could even talk about the mental health, but we also could look at the concept of reaching to know the unknowable. So if we look at the way things are now, and you think, okay, can we change and go into the future and make things better for more people? Can we change and make in a more equality part of who we are as a planet? Can we do that? And that's the unknowable. The unknowable is, how do we do that? Can we just throw money at it? Probably not. Can we take money and start using it in a way that is constructive? Lots of ideas of how we can make it better. Can we get our heads together and figure out a way to do it? Now, for the most part, you would say that searching for the unknowable is more of like a mystical type of energy. And although it could be that, it could be something as practical as figuring out, okay, these are problems that have been existing in our society, in our culture, and in our world for a long time. How can we fix these problems? And there isn't a knowable right now, because we don't really know. We think that we have ideas, and there's lots of ideas floating around, but again, the more ideas we come together, something will stick, something will make the difference. And it's all about slow steps. It's about the road of 1,000 miles begins with one step. And that's where we're going with this. Saturn remains in the gate 60. All these energies like Jupiter and Saturn and also Pluto, they're all retrograde now. So their energy, some people say they're more powerful and some people say they're less powerful. You can decide which works for you. But the energy of Saturn continues to be in the gate of limitation, which is considered the gate of awakening by Ra Aruhu. And it's all about, through our limitations, we awaken to the world around us. We can imagine about the positive way of being in this limitation. We can imagine that we're in a house, but outside of our house is another bigger house. And when we get used to being in our smaller house, we have sort of transcended that concept of feeling limited and feeling that we don't have everything we want. Then we can move into the bigger house. So when we transcend the idea of, oh, I can't cope with this limitation, we can move into the next phase, which is, okay, now I already know that even within this limitations, I can have everything I want. Even within this small house, this minimalist house, I have everything I need and I'm happy with that. And when you're happy, then you open the door for more positive things to come into your life. But when you look at yourself and say, oh, I'm in this house, it's too small, I feel cramped, I hate this world, I hate everything, that's what you kind of get. It's the energetic. It's like, you know, where energy, where focus goes, energy flows. And so if you're focusing on all the bad things in your life, you're going to, more energy flows into the bad things in your life, or the things that limit you. So that's the concept of Saturn. Now, Saturn is a very strong energy. And again, this could be looking at, I mean, right now it's in, because the gate 60 straddles 2 signs between Aquarius and also Capricorn. When it does move back into Capricorn, there might be some more physical limitations that we might have happened. I don't know if that will be the case, but there's potential for that, based on Capricorn is more of an earthy energy, and it is really an energy of structures and buildings and laws and rules and those kind of things. So that would be something to think about. But for now, it's in Aquarius, and I would say with Aquarius, the limitation we're going to talk about is more of the internet, the online, things like that. It's going to be about information, freedom of information, and those types of things. Now, Uranus is in the gate 24, and the gate 24 is returning. So this is going back to the scene of the crime, as you could say, and seeing about what exactly has happened, and almost trying to find a solution or find the answers in what happened. But sometimes there's an ability to get lost in the past and not really want to move into the future, and just really want to go back in the past. And it's almost like you want to go back in time and change all the things that you might have done wrong. But the highest point of this energy is that you see, you know, okay, what happened? What can I take from this, and how can I move forward in the future? So it's about going back to the past, but also in the idea that you're learning from the past, taking the lessons that you need, and moving forward into the future. And then Neptune remains in the gate 22, which is all about this idea of grace, and being in grace, and understanding that even if times are not exactly perfect, the way you deal with it, the way you look at it, it goes right back to the whole limitation thing that I talked about. If you see your life as horrible, and I mean, that's kind of the energy that we're drawing into it. And it's not like a Pollyanna concept. It is a concept of, yeah, I mean, we're going to have bad days, but we're also going to have good days. But how can we work with what we have, understand that bad will come just as well as good, and have gratitude for everything, because without the contrast, we wouldn't know what happiness was if we didn't feel the pain. So ultimately, that's what this energy is talking about. And I hope it was of value. And I will be back soon again with some more videos. And if you like my videos, I would love if you would like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you next time. Take care, and bye for now.